and we were just discussing there, okay, so this is a company that is data and it's AI and it's bringing it together.
Yep.
Thousands of customers around the world, but can you just give us an example of one in particular and also how the company really works in practice?
Yeah, look, so you could take kind of an interesting example, Adobe. Everybody knows Adobe as a company. What they're trying to do is, most people think about them as Photoshop, but now they have all these customers, creative professionals that are trying to go and drive insights. They want to know, what are our customers doing? How do we give them better capabilities? How do we help them reach their customers? That's tons of data that they have to bring together and then figure out how do they use all sorts of different things, from regular analytics to kind of the latest machine learning insights. That's a lot of work to stitch that together. Databricks says we could do that for you end to end, help you unlock a whole set of new capabilities that you didn't have before, cheaper and faster than you did. And so we have over 10,000 customers globally who are doing that.
You've been around for more than 10 years now because you're established in 2013, but how do you think the introduction of tools like ChatGPT has really changed your business? Do you think there's a greater awareness of the kinds of things you can do, even if you already have a lot of other things besides large language models?
Yeah, I think it absolutely has. I think the bad joke that I have is we've always been the data and AI company, but previously we had to scream the data part and whisper AI, because AI was considered this futuristic thing. Now the problem is everybody's screaming AI and we're like, don't forget about the data part. So I think what's happened is, where we previously had to convince people data and AI was important, now we're getting calls of saying, how do I move faster on this? And so it's really accelerated. People understand AI is critical. Data underpins it. Without good data, you don't really have AI. And so the demand of people saying, how do we move faster? What are the best practices? What are others doing? We've seen a huge accelerant as a result of it.
And so do you think, though, that focus on AI and just the amount of hype around it, is that what sort of compelled you to bring your own AI tool into the market?
Well, look, we've had an AI tooling way before kind of LLMs or generative AI was there. But I think that the key part is we are, maybe because, we jokingly are Berkeley hippies. We've always been big on open source, right? Open standards, giving people choice. And one of the things we saw initially with generative AI was you kept hearing about these large proprietary labs who were building it. But we thought the future had to be open models. People could customize it. People could take with them both for control, security, costs, and the like. And so we made sure that we basically put out models so that there was a vibrant open source ecosystem. And it's been great to see, in addition to Databricks and DBRX, you have other ones like Mistral and Meta with Llama 3. So there's a lot of now choice. And I think open models are going to be at the core of the future going forward.
Yeah, that's a really big distinction to make, perhaps, between proprietary versus open source. When it comes to the amount of parameters that you're setting as well, is that something that's sort of the future of where we go from here? Because it seems like really we don't have the sort of compute capacity, we don't have the energy power as well to sustain these really large proprietary models.
Yeah. Well, look, I think it's also, we get enamored with simple things. And the latest one is, how many parameters do you have? You have 500 billion parameters. You have 1 trillion parameters. Honestly, it reminds me of the old days where everybody would argue who had the faster Pentium chip for your computer. It's not really the bottleneck. And even if you look at many of these large models that they say there are 1 trillion parameters, underneath there are a bunch of smaller specialized models that you're picking for it. So I think we're now seeing many more organizations go to this model where they're saying smaller model, bespoke for my actual need that I can use. And the key thing, people start caring about how fast can I answer questions and the cost. Because those big models are very general purpose. They're generally slower and they're very, very expensive, not just to train, but to answer questions with. And I think that's prohibitive for a lot of people. So state of the art, and Databricks is at the core of this, is how do we drive down those costs and customization with smaller models that are much more accurate than maybe some of these big models for specific use cases.
Let's talk about the business of Databricks. You were last valued at around the 43 billion mark.
Yep.
Is that what you're at today?
Well, we're a private company, so valuation is always weird. And that was the valuation at our last round.
When was that?
Honestly, that's a good question. It's about a year ago, I think, or a little bit less than a year ago at this point. We always get asked when we're going public. I think what we like to say we're fortunate is, when we raised that round, we made a certain set of bets to investors about here's how fast we're going to grow, and we've seen us to not only hit those targets but exceed those targets. So we're just about excited about where the business is.
IPO, though, listing, what would be the timeline for that?
Yeah. It's a great question. We get asked that on a regular basis. I think what we've said is we're not one of those companies who plans to be private forever. And I think we plan to be, kind of go IPO soon. but we're also under no pressure. Many of the reasons you go IPO is, can I get access to liquidity? Do enterprises know who we are? That isn't a real challenge for us. And with things like GPT and GPUs and LLMs, being private has given us an ability to invest and leapfrog many others that would have been more difficult if we're public. So we'll go public soon, but not in a rush to do so.
Can you give some more insights on what soon means? Are you talking within this year?
No, I would doubt that it would be this year, but honestly, it's one of those things that there isn't this like secret master plan on a wall and we're just not sharing it. We said when the timing is right, but we're much more focused on how do we drive the business.
Okay, and you have seen really strong revenue growth as well. Are you at the point where you're profitable now?
So I think seeing us, as a company, we're continuing to get more and more efficient. But, I think that the crazy part is when you look at some of the numbers that we've shared with investors and analysts, we're still basically growing at over 50% year over year, north of $1.5 billion in ARR. There's pretty much no other company out there that can point to those kind of growth in numbers and continually getting more efficient. So I think that that's why when we talk with investors, they're pretty excited about the state of the company, and we think we're just at the start.
What's next then? What are the new growth areas that you're looking at in particular? Or would you be looking to add further headcount, for instance, any specific regions that you're looking at for that?
We actually never slowed down growth. We're still investing heavily, particularly on the R&D side, because we imagine ourselves being an innovation machine, and on the go-to-market side, because we still think that there's so much coverage. APJ in general tends to be a very fast-growing region for us. We're, investing as fast as we can in terms of headcount across the spectrum. From a growth perspective, we continue to put out new product lines and capabilities. For example, we weren't in data warehousing as an area. It's just been in 2 years that we've kind of released a data warehouse. We're now well north of 300 million in ARR in that area, and we keep adding new capabilities. And the nice part is we don't have any heavy concentration on depending on a couple set of customers. And even in some of our largest customers, we're still a relatively small share of wallet, so we're not close to saturation. So new capabilities, lots of new customers, and even our existing customers, still lots of room for growth.